is, I think, some good news, but it does not, of course, bring back it does not bring back the dead. What it does, though, is at least provide a bit of a course of justice and trying even to go to the nitty-gritty reasons as to why, where, what went wrong. How did they end up in this particular situation? I think there's a lot that will be coming out of this in terms of revelations, and we'll be trying to listen and hear from the relatives of some of these people just to hear the latest. Kaka Rama, I don't know if you are on already. We would have wanted to start with you because you would bring us up to date at least on this particular case, which is the hottest case that is that we are pursuing. We'll also be hearing from the United States just in terms of experiences of parents, what they are going through at the moment, and what they are going through at the moment, and probably how we could avert the situation. But these experiences are very important. As a parent, you might think it hasn't happened to me. But ultimately, nobody really ever calls it. It happens because within our own communities, within the different circumstances, there are people who have found themselves in the wrong place at the wrong time, and therefore caught up in something they totally didn't even know about. There are times when our own children have ended up in situations that we as parents are unaware of, and therefore, as a result, unable to be able to do anything about it. And that is quite crucial. So tonight's conversation on Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira, live on 75W Radio and live on Uma Connect, both on Zoom as where we are at now and live on YouTube, to be able to have this particular conversation. I'm just wondering if Brother Kakarama, if you are there, are you there? Is it Abdul Keke? Please, if you can raise your hand, Kakarama, if you are on, so that we can just bring you, so that you can help us bring us up to date with the current situation. But just in terms of the statistics, just to show you how bad the situation has been, at least between 2019 and 2021, they're talking about nearly 200 cases of knife crime within London alone. And I think that speaks volumes just in terms of where we should be looking at and what exactly is going on. While I'm waiting for Kakarama, I'll just get Joy Tapita, who is a social worker. Madam Joy, you are there. If you can unmute yourself, please. Just get us beginning into this particular conversation. You have worked with communities, especially on matters on matters to do with knife crime, especially in London, where you are based. Please just bring us up to date while I'm trying to get Kakarama to get the latest from the hospital, and in terms of where we are at with the particular case that is the subject, is the basis of the conversation that we are having. Hello, Joy. Good evening.
Hello, good evening, Kassim. Good evening, friends. Thank you for coming together tonight to talk about this issue that is in our community. I'll just run through what we do. I'm a social worker, and I work with young people who are in care, and they're aged between 14 and 18, but sometimes they stay on until 19 before they move to another team. And I've been a social worker for the last 5 years, and I've worked with quite a few young people who are involved in knife crimes. They have been stabbed or they have stabbed somebody. So that's where I gain my work experience from and the knowledge, and also from the training that has been offered to me by the local authority to work with the police and the young people themselves. I was just telling Kassim that what do you want me to talk about?
Yeah. Because it's quite a wide area. But when you say now with the knife crime, because we were saying the numbers are big, the numbers are increasing. What sort of numbers are we talking about? Just relative.
They are saying, I'll give you what I know. In 2018, we had about 50 young people who were victims of knife crime. They passed away as a result of knife crime, and they said they were aged between 10 and actually 19. Right. So it's not that big. Those are young people we are talking about, and then some statistics show us between 10 and 25. So when we talk about young people, that's where we tend to stick to. But actually, when you look at the general statistics in the whole country, most of the young people have been victims, of knife crime or weapon-related crime, if you like. That's how we call it, because sometimes they're sharp objects, not necessarily knives, and sometimes they are guns. They're usually aged between 10 and 25. So that is the age group.
And what's the reason for that? I mean, for some reason, you find that quite often there are bigger numbers of Africans or blacks, for that matter, involved in this particular crime. Why is that?
And the main reason is poverty. The main reason is poverty, and also the location where these young people come from. The deprivation in the areas, school exclusions have really contributed mostly, because most of these young people involved in these crimes are not in school. They have either left school or their attendance is not great. And as a result, the school, of course, just penalizes them by excluding them. So most of them have been excluded from school. Some of them have mental health, and we know mental health is massive. We look at how they developed to that stage. And then, either they had learning needs, or they had what we call, PTSD, a lot of things that are involved in mental health. I know I've discussed that here before. And, when young people are struggling like that, they need support. And of course, unemployment as well, and the lack of role models. And by the way, most young people hear about knife crime all the time, like ourselves, because now knife crime is part of our communities. So they carry knives to protect themselves from people who carry knives. So it's like a cycle. They think they're trying to protect themselves.
By carrying a knife, the temptation to actually use it is relatively higher, as opposed to when you didn't have it.
Absolutely. And that's what we tell our young people, that when you carry a knife, first of all, it's illegal, but you are likely to use it, and you are likely to look intimidating. So even if somebody wasn't going to attack you, they will attack you because they think you may attack them first, and you're intimidating. So when you carry a knife, you are likely to use it, or you can actually hurt yourself. And I've got some young people, where they have been attacked, and the attacker used their own knife to stab them. You see that? You get them with cuts on their thighs because they were carrying the knife the wrong way in their waist. So you are likely to really get hurt or hurt somebody if you carry a knife.
Now, Joy, to a parent listening to this kind of conversation, many will be shocked sometimes to hear this kind of, details. Where does the parent come into this particular picture, if you think about it? Because you've spoken about the fact that many are sort of, pushed and excluded in school. Do parents even get to know that their children have been excluded and therefore do something about it? Could the exclusion be contested by parents, for example? Where is the parents' role in this particular situation mitigated, by the circumstances that you've just mentioned?
Kassim, it starts from home. It starts from home always. And sometimes parents are just working long hours. They have no idea what their children are watching, what time they come home, because they imagine, like I said, the age group is such that parents will imagine that children will go to school and come back by themselves. And sometimes parents have all gone to work. And most of the time, I'm not stereotyping, most of the time, these young people are from single family parents. They only have mothers at home and absent fathers. So these children are looking for role models outside. So most of the time, the mothers do not know, because they're working long hours and they have no idea who is mixing with their children, and even miss out on appointments at school. And we've had situations where parents don't even go for meetings when these things are raised at school. So they develop. They don't just exclude your child just in one day. It's a developing situation. They start by warning, by giving time out, and a lot of other things. So those are telltales. And for the parents, I've always said, look out when your child is changing. You will know. You will try to have some ideas, because they change in a way that can surprise you. Because, for example, they become very secretive. We know most teenagers are secretive, but with young people who carry knives, it's totally different. For example, they may come back and they have like maybe some mood swings. It is normal with adolescents, but again, you will find, if you pay attention to your child, you will know, are they scared? Has somebody threatened them? Have they been told to deliver a parcel so they can be given some chips and chicken along the way as they get home? And then that parcel, they take it, they steal the parcel from them, then they tell them, look, somebody took the parcel, you are now going to deliver 3 items to pay back that parcel. So that's how they are groomed, from chips and chicken, simple things like that. And a mother may not know. But what I'm trying to tell you is that as much as we're sacrificing our lives to work for our children are being groomed, in front of us. So yes, it starts from home. When a child comes, for example, a child is supposed to be at school maybe by 8:30. The teachers tell you the child wasn't there. You haven't followed up to find out where did you go before you got to school. Then the school finishes at 3. It takes 15 minutes for the child to get home. And they get home at 6 because they know mom is coming back at 7. It's what I mean. So all these things, give them a call, random calls on the landline and find out. Are you at home? If you're not at home, where are you? Who are you hanging out with? It's not being controlling. It is really showing that you are concerned. And our children need us. So you will try to find out.
Joy, I'm trying to interrogate the points, especially that you raised, because, for example, the high rates of exclusion in schools. Once a child is excluded, the parent quite often is informed. The text message is sent to you, and so on. For a parent, is there any possibility that you can contest an exclusion for your child? Because maybe that might be one way in which you can help to stop the child being roaming around, because you are at work, you're in the middle of work. Once they've been excluded, they cannot go to school. They will dress up in the morning. Sometimes even parents are not even aware that their children have been excluded. So the child just dresses up as if they are going to school, leaves home, the pretext of going to school when it's not happening, and they hang around the wrong places. But they are situated. So at what level can a parent intervene? Can parents, for example, contest? Because sometimes, as we were discussing, for example, the case of COVID last week, some people were saying to us from Uganda, if you question the doctor, like for an opinion or so on, they might refuse to treat your patient. So you find people that even where they have the right to question situations, they are unable to. Can parents, for example, question the exclusion of their children within school?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, they start with a disciplinary. The disciplinary will tell you why your child is difficult, why they think they can no longer manage, because they have tried actually to intervene. Local authorities are now working with young people who are at risk of being excluded. I know that sometimes, like you said, the parents may feel powerless, to intervene. But what I normally tell people is that don't go to social services only when the child has left home. When these problems are coming up, you can actually approach your local authority. There is what we call fast help. In every local authority, there's a desk for fast help. They will intervene and help you. If you don't know, go to Citizen Advice Bureau. Let's look for help. But the most important place to go is social services. If you're going to say, I'm worried, my child may be excluded from school, they will allocate you somebody to help you, because we work with the schools anyway. There will be always a designated teacher who can actually help. Because for example, some young people have mental health and they haven't been diagnosed. And as a result, they can't settle. They can't sit in a bigger class and they're excluded. Like we know most of these young people who are excluded, they have learning needs that have never been actually identified. But when you go to social services, if you have concerns, they can help you. I can say, go to an advocate. It may be more complicated for you to find an advocate, but go to social services. We work closely with schools, and the local authority, in any case, is that places your child in that school.
Right. Just to remind you, we are live on 75W Radio and on Zoom and via Umma Connected, and on YouTube, where we are going live, having this particular conversation, which is a conversation with you. This is not just about talking heads, one person talking to all of you. It is about us having a conversation, especially on topics this difficult, where communities or people, participants need to come in to have a conversation, to discuss the very factors that we think are contributing to these situations. We would like to hear your particular experiences. What has your experience been? Have you had, for example, a child who has been, who has fallen victim to a knife crime? Have they survived it? Were there lessons that you took from that? This is really the conversation that we intend to have. And through this, probably seeing how you manage to cope as a family. Because right now, we have a family of friends, of relatives in Woolwich who are grieving following the multiple stabbing of their child, which was the fatal stabbing of their child, who is now no longer with us. Looking at the kind of situation that they must be going through at this particular moment in time, sometimes what helps a lot is having these conversations, just in terms of hearing how they manage to cope with this particular situation. As for in the United States, maybe if we could come to you and you just give us an idea of how the situation is in the United States. It's not knife crime, it's more gun crime. What's the situation like now at the moment in the United States? No.
Shay, can you give me a few minutes? There's somebody else. I'm
All
still
right. Well, I can see Nur Nachito, whose hand is up. Barakallahu fikum, Nur Nachito. I'm assuming you are in Manchester, in the north of England. Am I right to imagine so?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Hello?
can hear you. Hello, Nur. Salamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I'm assuming that you are in the north of England, in Manchester. Is that correct?
Yes, Sheikh, I am.
How bad is the situation with the knife crime there?
Manchester, actually, it used to be so bad. It's come so down now, but there are still some pockets here and there. I just wanted to add on something or ask if someone can help me. There was an issue in my family some time back. I don't know the way I handled it. I think it was handled, but I didn't feel it was handled well by the police, whereby my son now in college, but before that, he used to be in this secondary school, probably had an argument with one of the boys or friends. So what happened, this boy found out where the college my son was going and started sending pictures of knives and threatening text messages that I know now where you are and abuses. And I reported this to the police, but the police never came back to us anything or follow up on tell us what has happened. So that makes somebody, a parent or a child, to scared, thinking maybe even this person knows where I live. So how would you handle that if someone can help?
Joy, we still have you. If you could help us answer that, and we'll come to Ismail Musoke. Probably you have a personal experience. Nuru, thank you very much. Of course, now we were actually intending to have a person from the police, from the Metropolitan Police. It looks like it was too much short notice, and therefore they couldn't give us anybody. We are still trying to. Probably there might be a statement quite often in situations where they cannot avail someone. At least we had flagged the case as is. And we hope that probably we might be able to get a statement that we can use as a conversation point. But Joy, you've just heard from Nuru. She got particular concerns about her situation, and then she tried to deal with it, but nothing. She doesn't feel like the police reacted correctly. Joy, what could she have done? Could she have pursued it much further?
I'm so sorry to hear that. What I have to tell you is that don't take no for an answer because one officer has told you. I was just advising somebody on Saturday where the landlord went in the house, just literally broke in. And I told her, without any notice, and I told her to call the police. When she called this police officer, she was like, it is his house, he can do as he likes. I said, no, it is illegal. So why am I giving you that example? Just because one police officer has told you something, you should not settle for it. This is your child. Go to social services. Let every parent who has a child, who is struggling, approach social services. They are putting a lot of money in social services to help communities address violence, you see. But that is wrong because if somebody sends you a message which is threatening, it's a crime. It's a crime on its own because you've got the evidence of it. In fact, we investigate this kind of cases and we help the police. When our young people get letters, they get photos, we help them to investigate these matters. So please do not settle for that because one officer has turned you down, because you have reason to fear. If you have reason to fear, then you need protection. And your child needs to know that if somebody threatens me, I can get help. Because if they don't get that assurance, they're not going to bother to report next time. They will go and get the knife and protect themselves. Right. And then that's the end of it.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Joy. Nora, I think you have heard that. The point is about taking them. So, Joy, are you suggesting then that Nora now should go back and try to pursue the case because she raised this in case anything happens, at least it even needs to be on record that she reported the matter and nothing was done. That actually could be part of the investigation, and God forbid that any harm would come their way.
Absolutely.
But now, considering the police did not react in the way that they were supposed to have reacted, or they were supposed to have legally reacted, what can she do in her position now as a parent? Where else can she run to?
Is the child in school? Because if the child is in school, you report it to the school.
Nuru, I'm sure you are on. Can you please speak to Joy? This is a conversation. We are having a conversation now. Talk to Joy. Hello, Nuru.
Maybe she's muted.
I'll try to see if any of the hosts, if you can help me just find Nuru Nachito. I think we could just get to hear, they can have a conversation, because this is a conversation as we prepare to bring in Ismail Musoke to hear. And if you have any personal experiences, I've just found Noor. Yes.
Yes, now.
Your own. Yes, speak to Joy,
Yeah,
please.
what happened actually, we reported to the police, they gave us a reference number, we reported the school social services at the college, took it up. Obviously, all of them, they go back to the police. So all the police said is that, well, just let us know if this person continues threatening you, but at the moment, we haven't found anything. If we come up anything, or we find who this person is, we'll let you know. But time has passed now. I would say now it's something like 6 months gone,
right,
since this happened. But obviously, we have not had those threats again from this person, probably because the other friend of my son told him that person called him and said, oh, he won't send these messages again. He was only trying to scare him off. So I don't know. That's why maybe they stopped. But obviously, my son.
As a parent, are you still worried? Are you still worried as your son?
No, I'm not. Me, I'm not worried because we have not got the threats yet. But that still puts off my son going out. He's saying,
but I mean, you as a parent worrying about your son whenever he goes out, is it something of a concern that comes to your heart?
Myself, I'm not worried, but the son, is worried. He doesn't even want to go out. He thinks, what if these people are finding me on the shopping center? He rarely goes out. He's scared.
Wow. That's now affecting someone's social life as a result, I think, and that's the trouble with such scary situations. I think we need to sort of have a situation where people can feel comfortable and free and happy to be able to live their lives fully. But in a situation like this, it is definitely clear the person is unable to to enjoy their lives fully because they are scared.
Yeah,
and that's the point of concern even to any parent. All right, Noor, I think probably with the situation, we are hoping that inshallah, nothing happens beyond this, nothing happens beyond the threat. But it is definitely something that you should continue monitoring very, very closely. Ismail Musoke, you are unmuted. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Welcome to the program. Come, let's talk with me, Kassim Kayira here. And we're talking knife crime, gun crime in the case of the United States. Any particular experience that you'd like to share?
Alhamdulillah. First of all, I'd like to say it's a pleasure to be on your show. It's a pleasure to be here. We see the work you've been doing and we ask Allah to accept it from you. And, it's just a pleasure to be here. Yes, I do have personal experience. I have a family member. I live in London.
Do you mind having your camera on, or you do mind? No, I think, with these kinds of conversations, you sort of want, when you see someone, it's kind of reassuring. It's not like you're speaking to a ghost. And that's why, if you mind, then it is understandable. You might be at work or in a place where you don't feel convenient for you to be on video, but it helps a lot, because this is the help of Zoom and these video applications that allow people to see one another.
I'm not able to put, due to where I am right now.
That's fine. Perfectly fine. Perfectly. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yes. So, I would say I'm probably a lot younger than many of the people on this Zoom, and I've grown up and been raised in this country.
How old are you?
25.
Right.
Yes, and I've spent most of my life here in the UK. So I think the perspective I'm able to come with is a slightly different perspective, let's say, to the parents. But what I wanted to say is, I myself have had a family member who's been shot here in the UK and killed. We ask Allah to have mercy upon him. So I know firsthand what it means, or what knife crime or gun crime means, from the perspective of a family. I've also had the experience of working within an organization. I was a director of an organization that deals directly with a lot of the troubled young people. So one of the jobs that I had was actually going into schools and pupil referral units and speaking to these young people who are likely to get involved. So I do feel like I have a broad experience to share with everyone here today.
Right.
What I wanted to say, Sheikh Kassim, is that many of our young people are scared. Many of our young people are scared, and they're worried. They're scared every time they step out the house. They feel as if their life is in danger, unfortunately, due to the current environment that we're living in, with all of the crime that's going on. We find that a lot of our young people, they're carrying knives and guns and weapons out of fear. What they're telling themselves is that I'd rather be caught with a knife than to be caught without a knife, because if I'm caught with the knife, then unfortunately I'm afraid of what's going to happen to me if the other person I run into has a knife or has a gun or has any other weapon. So it is out of fear. It is out of being scared of the consequences of what will happen of not having a weapon on you, if that makes sense. And this isn't the general thing that's going on, because every circumstance is different. But I would say generally a lot of our young people are scared. So I want to approach this I want to take a multi-layered approach, because I don't feel like there is one solution to this. One approach that I want to say is for the parents, to build that communication with your child.
Hold on one second. Just help me understand this, and probably so that we travel along together, because as parents now, as a parent, there's a lot that I miss along the way, but also as a former supply teacher, there's a lot again that I get to see that many parents wouldn't get to see. Now, put us in this particular picture, for example, as a parent, then because the question would be, what is the relationship between knives or knife crime or gun crime and guns? What is there a direct correlationship, or could there be a situation where, as you've said, a young person can just carry a knife because that's the only way they feel secure, but they have nothing to do with guns? What is the relationship? Is there a direct correlation between knife crime or gun crime and guns?
Yes, I mean, we're currently based in the UK, so the situation is different. I say maybe in America, where guns in some states are legal and things like this. But yes, in the UK, there is also gun crime. Young people are able to get access to guns. Usually, let's say there's a local gang or a local group of young people who are working, let's say, because I want to give you a scenario to paint a picture for you. Let's say, you live in an area where there's a local gang or group of young people, and they're selling drugs in the local area, and they have access to a lot of drugs and a lot of money. What they will do in order to protect that money is usually carry weapons to prevent other young people from coming and taking the money and the drugs from them. So these guns and these knives become a form of protection for that group. Unfortunately, a lot of our young people who are innocent and going about their own business end up getting caught up with these other you could call them bad young people. Why? Because they would recruit, they like to recruit younger ones, more innocent ones, to carry the drugs, to carry the guns. So it's a business, so to speak. If I hope that I'm making sense. I don't want to kind of lose everyone, but it's like a business. It's a whole system that's running. You could call it the criminal underworld, fortunately, that's running. And
Oh, your line is beginning.
So that's what I want to say. But in terms of Sheikh Kassim, are you still there?
Yes, go ahead. Your line was beginning to bleed in a little bit, but I think it's got better now.
Okay, sorry about that. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to focus more kind of on the solutions, because I've had an opportunity to work with a lot of these young people one-on-one, to speak to them. And what are the solutions? Well, we start at the root, which is the home. That's where it begins. Parents, in terms of the advice that I can give with working with young people, is to communicate with them, to speak to them, to understand them. What are their likes? What are their dislikes? A lot of times, Sheikh Kassim, we speak about what young people can't do. My young person, he's not good at this and he's not good at that. But it's about speaking about what they are good at and trying to push them into those directions. Because when a young person has something to do, what I found generally, when you have an activity, and you have a passion, or you have something to do with your time, that is automatically going to take away from you being dragged in wrong. That's from finding interest for the children, activities, community activities for them, and also building communication lines where if they feel their life is in danger, or if there's someone threatening them, that they feel safe to come and open up and speak to you. Because a lot of times, Sheikh Kassim, what we find in our community, especially in our Ugandan communities, that many of the children are scared of the parents. So even if they have an issue, they're more likely to go to a friend, and that friend may give them a solution, which is not great, which will probably make the issue worse. So it's trying to build that trust between the parents and between the children. Another
now, Ismail, I just want to be as practical as possible and avoid being more the theoretical, the office person, because we are talking to ordinary people, ordinary parents. The conversation we are having is global. It's someone in Kampala, it's someone in the United States, someone in the UK. So I want to take the story down to them for the ordinary person to sort of see what they can practically do. You have mentioned something about keeping our children busy. And that is one by, for example, identifying the kind of interest that they have. Many parents, sorry, because many is so much of a stereotyping. A number of parents might actually, despite they are working too hard, feel mean about paying, for example, for the interest that the children have. A child wants to go into football, you have to pay for the football. A parent will just say they would rather put food on the table instead of pay for the football, which would have kept the son, or even basketball or netball for the girl, that would have kept the daughter busy. Is that the sort of thing that you're sort of saying? Because and here I'll ask even Joy to come back again, just to sort of see at the practical level, now that you have been working with these young people, Ismail,
Yes.
you see like parents have contributed to this by not paying for these aspects that would have made a difference?
Yes, I feel it's not even paying, because Sheikh Kassim, a lot of these activities we live in, let's say here in the UK, but we want to make it global for the whole audience. Here in the UK, we are lucky enough to have many of these activities actually funded, partially funded, or for free for many of our young people, if we're able to look for them on Google and sign them up to local things. So, it's about, I guess, not only just paying, but also showing an interest in what they're interested in. So, let's say your son is interested in something, playing badminton, for example. It's not just paying, but, if you can make time, if you can, we understand people are working, it's difficult, but if you can, even if it's one day a week, to drop him off there, pick him up, because this is how, this builds trust. And also for the young person, this builds their confidence and their resilience, and, it helps to develop their character long term. So these are all things that could help, because the more busy they are doing something productive, the less likely they are to be doing something unproductive.
Absolutely. You've just hit the nail. You just hit the nail on the head. Actually, you hit it on the head on that particular one. Just in terms of where parents now need to come in, because quite often you might think you are throwing money at the problem without your presence, without you being there, without you being involved. And the more interest you show, the more definitely it reflects in terms of what comes back. What you put in, what you get back.
I'll give a practical example, Sheikh Kassim, before you hand over to someone else.
Yeah, sure.
I myself, alhamdulillah, had a big interest in, as a teenager, had a big interest in public speaking, in presenting and public speaking. And I was being invited to different places to give talks, motivational talks to other young people. And, my father, he would attend. He would come and actually attend and sit in the talks and give me feedback and just give me that support. And that helped to motivate me to stay away from bad company and to stay away from things. So just wanted to give a practical example to show that, yes, it does work. If you support your child and your presence, and you're present and you're there for them, it goes a long way and it's appreciated. Thank you.
Did you find yourself well helped by going into these activities? Was there a time, for example, during your youthful days, since you've lived nearly your entire life here, was there a moment that you felt threatened and therefore felt the urge, for example, to want to have a knife?
There were times when I did feel unsafe, leaving the house as a young black man, leaving the house here in the UK, growing up in the inner city. Every time you leave your house and you see, let's say, a group of boys across the street, you always feel as if something could happen, or anything could happen. But one thing that I would say, alhamdulillah, I was blessed with by Allah, is to have a bit of common sense and street smarts, or being able to be streetwise. So for example, I was always taught, if you see a group of young boys across the road, then, maybe try to take another route. They're just small things that I learned just as a teenager that helped me to survive. Minding my own business is one of the things that I was always taught. Mind your business. Don't get involved in things that don't concern you. And these things help me to navigate. But what I feel, Sheikh Kassim, for a lot of the young men, unfortunately, there is also the ego. Why should I be scared of them? Why should I, they should be scared of me, or why should I be scared of them? So that comes into play. And that's what leads to a lot of the issues that we see, the fights, and unfortunately, sometimes the stabbings, is that ego. So if we can advise our young people as much as we can that you are not weak by walking away from trouble, that does not make you weak. That does not make you less of a man to walk away from trouble. If anything, it makes you the bigger man, because you've helped to avoid something from happening. So, it also goes back to home. It goes back to community. Also, I want to stress that the importance of community. it's each of our responsibilities. Even in our religion, as we know, the believers are one body. If one part feels pain, the whole body feels pain. If you have a nephew, you have a a grandson, extended family member, let's try as much as we can to mentor and reach out and help these young people, inshallah. I feel like that's a solution.
No, thank you. Absolutely. Just to remind you, you are live on 75 WL Radio and Umma Connect on Zoom and on YouTube. And the program is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim, Kayira, Nilfa in the chat room. Remember, you can actually have a conversation in the chat room. We do a lot of times. The difference about this program, as opposed to many of other programs, is how interactive this program is. It's not about me really doing all the talking. It's about us having a conversation, you talking to the people, people talking with you. And out of that, hopefully being able to build a particular picture. Nilfa says social services in some cases tend to also push our concerns on the side. Joy, we will push that question to you going forward. Abu Afra, I think in Manchester, says, well put, young man. You made fantastic points. Barakallahu bikum. Boy Wonder, I can see your hand is up. Let's hear your experience. And then, Boy, I'll throw the issue of social services also being part of the problem sometimes, failing to see the telltale signs or intervene at the right time. But first, let's hear from Boy Wonder. And we welcome to the conversation.
Yeah,
hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Yes, please, go ahead.
I wanted to say last I just met.
Boy Wonder, your line is bleeding out. I don't know what's going on. You're kind of in a noisy place, but while we are waiting for you, I think Adam says here, mashallah, brother Ismail. Ismail, can I have your number, please? Because probably you might come in quite handy to provide advice. Ismail Musoke, you are there and you're already working with young people. I think Adam is very interested in hearing from you beyond this. If you don't mind, you can put your number in the chat room so that we can pick up the conversation from here. Boy Wonder, are you in a better place now to continue?
I'm in a better place now, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I was
in
saying,
the background, but hopefully we will be able to hear.
Yeah. It's more to do with the ego. Like the kids nowadays, obviously, when they're outside, they don't know no better. To them, they're looking at it like a school playground. And the parents, like for me, like I always blame the parents. Like I don't blame the parents, but I say like everything starts at home. Yeah. So you see, like us Ugandan kids, we will stop morality. Yeah. Which might mean like when you go or you do something, we're not really like, you're more scared of your parents than anything. Yeah. So that fear is what keeps you from like getting in trouble, or you're going to go out there and do an immoral act. But a lot of people nowadays, they don't have that morality. They don't value that human life or that human aspect. And that's where I think it's going wrong.
So our egos have taken over, and therefore even the kind of respect. Are you talking about respect or fear, or the line between there's a thin line between the two to an African family?
Both of it work hand in hand, fear and respect. Because for me to be able to respect, yeah, I have to have a little bit of fear.
All right.
That's how it's been working. Because we live in a Western world where they tell you your child, you have to raise your child like your best friend. You know, you can't if you touch your child, you go with your child abuse, all of that. We understand this. There's people out there that extremely over like use their power like that would take their anger out on children or whatnot. But that's not in the
Boy Wonder, your line is not very good. Your line is not very good, and yet it looks like you're making very good points. I wish I could hear you any better than how I am hearing you at the moment.
I know it's my network.
All right. So have you had a personal experience with, say, knife crime? Have you had a friend or relative, or is that a problem that has befallen?
I got suspended from school for knife crime.
You got suspended from school?
Yeah, for knife crime.
Yes.
Yeah. So with my experience, it was more like basically one of my friends got robbed, And because he got robbed, we were sitting on the bus, and my other friend suggested that we should bring knives in school the next day. And when I was a young boy, I didn't know no better. I just followed the crowd. Took it to school. Lucky for me, the teacher found out the knife, and I got suspended from school. But that's just another example. I was basically following friends. Because if it comes down to it, I would not have done that because, like I said, I'm more scared of my parents than anything. So I am not going to go do something that's gonna shame my parents. You know that shame. That's, you know, like Oxford, and yourself. It's a very, very bad thing in our culture.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Boy Wonder. Remember, if you are a parent, I especially would like to hear those personal experiences. If you are a family that you found yourself, getting a child that has been victimized, or getting a child victim of knife or even gun crime, I would like to hear your experiences. How did you cope in those particular moments as a family? Sometimes there's stigma attached that, for example, if someone has been stabbed, then the stigma is you fear even, associating with other people, with the families, because the assumption is it would be gang related. If this person was stabbed, they must be part of a gang. And the stigma that the society or our community carries, the failure to appreciate some of the realities that we live around, I think sometimes make it difficult. Joy, a question was put to you and I'm bringing it back to you. Thank you very much, Boy Wonder, for the beautiful submission on a rather difficult line, but I will manage to pick up points in that. Joy, a point was put, which is about social services sometimes failing parents who are trying to intervene in the situation of their children.
I'm sorry to hear that, and I just want to thank again Ismail for that information you shared. It was quite detailed. We could almost just discuss only that. But this, like I said to my sister who talked earlier, that when you go to social services and you present your problem to say, my child is struggling, I'm no longer able to manage my child, there is something they have to do, especially if the child is still in school. And definitely if the child is under 18, the local authority has a duty to help you, because that is defined as a child in need, because he's no longer in school, he's likely to get in trouble, he's likely to end up in prison. And when they end up in prison, they automatically get involved with social services. So it is very difficult for me to comment on one instance where they felt the social services not help. From my experience, this is what I've heard. Like when some parents have said, if you tell social services that my child is likely to be in gangs or, carrying a knife, then they will take the child away. Those are some of the things we hear, because sometimes social services feel that at that time, one, they need to take that child from that environment because they are likely to be attacked anyway. Say, for example, if social services get involved and the child is too scared to go to school, then there is not much they will do. They will need to take that child away from that environment. Like that colleague was just gone who said, he was scared to get out. I think it was actually the lady who said the child was too scared to get out. So even when they have got involved, the child still fears to get out. Now, what we do, we try to have a plan and have some kind of intervention where sometimes we take a family away or we take the child away. And by taking the child, it's like removing the child from the environment to change the pattern. If they stay in the same neighborhood, Kassim, you're mute.
Yes,
if you're saying something.
You take them there. When you say you take them away from the environment, you lift them away from the environment. Do you relocate the family away from where the situation is bad?
If we have real information with the intelligence from the police that the child is really an active member in the gang, but they want to change. Remember, the child must be willing to change first of all from the gang life first of all. Otherwise, they keep running away. But if the child and the family, we get parents who are benefiting from these crimes. By the way, I'm sorry to say that. Like, for example, a child goes out, comes back with 1,000 pounds, comes back with this television, and the parents are not even asking their children, where are you getting that money from? A 17-year-old who is not working. So that parent is likely not to cooperate with the social services and the police because they are benefiting from that crime. But we get parents who are genuinely concerned and they relocate those parents. And we get parents who say, please let the child be looked after. And they sign what we call Section 20 to make the child become looked after by the local authority. We relocate children. We've taken children to Wales, to Scotland, to get away for 6 months. And they come back when at least they have cut the pattern. Their mindset has a little bit changed. But we get others who run back, But like we said, if you work with social services, they help you to manage young people who are likely to be groomed, who have been groomed, and they're actively in gangs.
But Joy, you find that now many of these crimes sometimes are exacerbated or facilitated by social media. By relocating, say, from London and taking them to Scotland or Wales, when their Instagrams or Snapchats or whatever are still active, would that
Kassim, our children will take out cut off completely from the phones. Like I said, it has to be an arrangement where we say you will have no access to the phone. And the only time you talk on the phone is the landline, and somebody has to be there. All the calls, they go to residential units, like 24/7 residential. So there is no, even on TV, they monitor whatever they watch. It is to cut off, it's like a rehab for them. It is so difficult for young people. Isma just said, it may look like the hardest thing to do to turn away, because remember, it's about loyalty. It's about feeling a sense of belonging and fitting in. And they're telling you to leave almost your real identity to get something else. But we need to sell that to them, to say, you know what? You can get it in another way. But of course, if a young person has been getting 1,000 a day, they don't see how they're going to be working to earn 1,000 end of the month. And that's the hard work now we deal with.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Joy. And of course, I can only remind you the fact that you are on the program Calm. Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira, a conversation where there is no language barrier. So even if you want to speak your Luganda, we will translate for our guests that are here. Your Swahili can still work here, so don't feel impeded in any way. Hawa, I'll be coming to you. I just wanted us to interrogate one very quick factor before I come to you, Hawa. The fact that there was something that was mentioned, that even in situations where, for example, a family is befallen by the misfortune of, say, a crime happening in the family, the kind of stigma that is carried within the community, the sense of community responsibility where communities normally would ordinarily come out and support the families that have been affected, you find that instead they get stigmatized. Neil Fakasuja, you are on, you raise this issue and you say it is very true in our community. There's not adequate support, within the community, and it's a big hindrance. Could you explore that a little bit further, please?
Yes, I can. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
This has hit home because I have a 15-year-old someone, and my issues have been, just because I'm a very strong woman, I kept asking for help, because you do see things happening to your children. When I'm saying social services sometimes pushes you back, you keep saying, but listen, I am not seeing things coming in my home, but I believe my son is being a runner and stuff like that. No, he is not. They're just being boys playing around. You keep having these things until something actually bad actually happens. Then they start chipping in, which I find very, very frustrating. The other issue was the stigmatization. I felt very, very sad about the young boy that was killed in Bullet. I really did. And I've come to realize, as a mother, a mother I was, I never knew this would come home as well. But what I've realized, our kids, as the kids grow up, they're all being a problem. There's nothing that, I am the best mother, nothing will happen to me. We've had these issues before from our peers who've had children who have gone through this, but we were never taught. No one talks to us. Anyway, I think they were not open. People are not open to help. I am now willing to open to help because I've seen what it has done. I've seen what I'm going through. It is not good. I do not wish it to any parent. These kids get groomed in a way that it is really, really absurd. Getting to a point whereby they say, even though we allocate you, the child is not willing to change. But the issue is the child not willing to change is the child gets scared. He's being threatened. You try to speak to them. He says, Mom, if I get out of this, you're gone. Or my sister is gone. Or they'll do this. But then the community as well stigmatizes. And these kids get to know, because our kids actually are friends in the community within each other. Yeah. They get to know, I had my mom talk this about you. I had my mom say this about you. Or they're saying your mom is a failure, or things like that. Whereby this is also being a hindrance So the kids tend to become very defensive to the police, to social services. They actually become a hindrance. I've liked this topic so much that I only wish and pray that Ismail, brother Ismail Mustafa, if we do something, I know Baker does do something, Baker TV does this, but I think we've now got to look into the younger age groups, starting from the age of 10, not only for the teenagers. I think we should start from a younger age as well.
This is one conversation that I think actually will not should not end today. Actually, I wish we had had adequate time to plan this, to push parents to actually bring in the younger people. I'd asked Beck as well to sort of mobilize the youth, especially, to be part of this conversation, because through this, actually, you hear a lot of experiences that people have gone through and then how they managed to overcome this. In fact, Wonder Boy, I can see you are still, is Boy Wonder. In the chat room, you are very active. Please, if you could just type in how you managed to pull yourself away from that particular trouble, because from your particular statement, it looks like you managed to walk away and you live a better life now. It would be interesting to just hear from you, probably, especially how you managed to pull. What was your eureka moment, that moment when you thought, I have to put a barrier to this and then move on? It would be interesting just to see that in the chat room, and I'll read it out. Hawa, let's come to you, please, and hear your particular experiences. And just before I come to Hawa, Kakarama, if you have joined us by any chance, please just raise your hand when you come in, whenever you come in. Sister Hamida, if Rama comes on, please, and you see him, just alert me, please, so that we can just have a quick update on the case that we.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sister Hawa.
Jebale Sheikh Kassim.
Nawe jebale nnyo.
Kakati nze mbadde naakatuuka naye nga simanyi mulamwa bulungi gwe tuliko, kyembadde nsaba okumbuliramuko.
Omulamwa tuli ku kizibu kya crime ekozesebwa ebiso oba emmundu, gun crime oba knife crime, kubanga nga kasaba wawulira wiiki ewedde tukyali mu lumbe olw'omwana eyafumitibwa ebiso ebuli mu London, mu South London. N'abati omwana yafa. In fact, waliwo n'omulala ate gwe nawulidde abadde akyali fresh, naye omulala yafumitibwa ekiso. Crime eno, obumenyi bw'amateeka obukwataganye n'ebiso, naddala ate mu baana abavubuka bali wakati w'emyaka 10 n'emyaka 20 bweyongedde nnyo. So conversation yaffe eri mugezaawo kulaba nga family oba tibatuukibwako ekizibu, omwana n'afumitibwa, oba muwalawo oba mutabani, nga family mwakiyita mutya. Experience esobola okuba nti eyamba abantu abasigadde okuba nti balaba engeri y'okusobola okuyita mu kizibu ekyo singa kiba kibatuuseeko. Naddala ku family kati eno yafiiriddwa, nkakasa nti kwe bali kuno tebannafuna maanyi gasobola kuba nti boogera, naye gye bakoma okuwuliriza experiences z'abalala zibayamba okuba nga zizimba ekifaananyi nabo ne bamanya engeri y'okusobola okwekwata.
Kale Sheikh Kassim.
Barakallahu fiikum. Ebali nnyo. Hasfa Kasuja, looks like you're ready now. Yes, please go ahead. Let's hear the US case. I know the US is not a lot of the knife crime, it's more gun crime. Maybe paint us a picture of what is the United States.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi.
I have to say, what I may say is I may not be as qualified as Sister Joy was.
Yes.
But I know in our community and in some places we have worked. Last year, I remember we had an issue of one of our children who was arrested because of gun violence. Right. And I don't know if you remember, that was in the middle of COVID. He ended up in jail for a couple months, actually. It's supposed to be for a couple years, but it was kind of revenge for hurting a friend of theirs. And they went with guns and tried to kill the other person, and they ended up apprehending them before they did it. But the scariest thing in America is how easy it is to get a gun. There are too many guns on the street. You go to a place like Walmart, it's easy to get a gun. Without proper background checks of people having any mental illness or anger issues or stuff like that, it is very easy to get a gun. So also depending on where you live, in some zip codes, the guns are on the streets. So some children may get access to the guns. And with our children, especially the Black children in our communities, the stigma is there, especially with Black people committing crime. So when you hear our children having issues with gun violence, right away there's a stigma that is attached to it. There's a profiling that is attached to it. That even to be the police will profile them no matter what. They will go to jail for long years for just owning a gun, contrary to what it is in the white communities. So as parents, I don't know if there is a way that we can always be on the lookout. Because I remember there was an issue of these kids had guns and they had them in the home of this parent who is also Ugandan, and she did not know, they did not know that there was guns in the home. And the question is, what do we do? So they come in, sometimes they're even ordered in the mail, and the parent may not know what was ordered in the mail. They brought an issue of social services. Social services in America, especially when it comes to children, is about fostering the children. They're gonna just take the children right there and then. It's not a service that is really utilized as much, especially when our children have issues in the school. Sometimes they will have resource officers in the schools and that work with the police. But if you're in an area that has a predominance of Black people and too much crime, all you can hear is foster care. So some parents will not go to social services. Or
Because they fear losing their children in case
they'll fear losing their children. And at the same time, like Sister Joy said, some of them are single parents who are working so hard. Or some of them are not even single parents, but they're just parents who are just workaholics. Or they missed it. They missed the telltale signs of what's going on in their homes, of the children coming in with expensive things, or children hanging out with the wrong crowd. So sometimes it's really hard. It's really hard. Bullying is a lot here in schools. And because some parents own guns, you never know when a child is bullied. If a parent has a gun, it's very easy for that kid to access that gun. So, and unlike you guys there, it is, you say a knife. What do you do with a knife? Do you hide the knives? What kind of knives do they go with? But when you're here in the US, you have to worry. You go to Walmart, like I said, the guns are there, but it's very hard to tell. It is very hard to tell. Social services will never do anything for you. The police, maybe when you're lucky, you get good resource officers, but as parents, you have to be extra keen, working overtime not to miss the telltale signs of our children as they get in trouble and that kind of friends that they hang out with.
Now I have a question. I have a question for you, Hasfa, and for everybody else that is listening into this conversation. Like I said, nobody comes here just to listen in. When you come in, you should be ready for us. So if you see me asking you to unmute, just be ready to say something, at least because this is the conversation that we are having. The question I'm asking then is, there have been concerns where parents, for example, have said in Western countries, we have not been, especially for African parents, we have not been given an opportunity to parent our children the way we are supposed to parent them. So you come here and then you are disabled in terms of the amount of power, the amount of rights that are given, to children, which is deceptive rights, rights that actually deny the parent the right to be able to parent the children. Because of, if you touch a child, then the next thing is social services is coming in and they're going to take the children away because there's abuse. You fail to inculcate the traditional aspects, the values that we came from, that we grew up with, that helped us to avoid being what they are becoming in those particular situations. Is that a situation that you see in the United States? Do you think the government fails you in that sense, especially social services when it comes to that, especially when you mentioned the fear that if you go in, you might lose your children?
Yeah, but social services is prompted. Social services, it's not easy for social services to just know what's going on unless there's something, especially at school, that they're seeing in the schools. But as African parents, how we are raising our children, I think Brother Ismail said, first of all, our parents, kids are it's very hard to talk to us. You know, it's very hard for us to approach our children. Yes, we are. First of all, we are raised different. You know, there are those things. If a kid says, "Oh, I'm struggling to fit in with my peers at school," you know, you may brush it off. Try to find a new friend. Try to find this, but social services never comes in just like that. Social services is probably prompted by the school or by a neighbor or by a pediatrician. So it is not as much as it is. Maybe I haven't seen it here where I am, but as parents, as African parents, we don't want to, what is the best word to say? We also just came into a culture that we're also just learning this culture. And our kids are still young and they probably are learning faster than us, and we have to keep up with the pace.
So to my question then, Hasfa, have we been failed by the system to parent our children the way we should, or we have failed ourselves?
We are failing ourselves.
Barakallahu fikum. James, I can see your hand is up. And I'll start with the question before hearing your particular experience. Tell how you've just put your hand away, you just ran away very fast. James, I can see your hand is up. I'm trying to get you to unmute yourself. Some reason it's not allowing me. Let me just see. James. I'm just trying to see James. I don't know what's happened to the.
I think I've managed to get that.
You managed to unmute yourself. Yes, I was trying to see. It looks like I've lost one of the hosting abilities, and therefore.
Okay.
Could the host please bring me back to the co-hosting on the Kassim Kayira one, because I wouldn't be able to grab it. So I'll take in, before hearing your submission, just to the question of whether we have been failed by the system to parent our children the way we ought to do as African parents, or we have failed ourselves.
All right. For me, I'm not really going to dwell so much about how most of us have been failed by the system. But I think for me, it's from a personal experience, and having lived in the UK for possibly more than 10 years, what I've actually witnessed, and that kind of comes back to my courtyard. I think the first thing that most of the parents are failing in the UK or even in other Western countries is purely the reason that most of the parents don't actually take charge of their children right from the time they were born. The reason why I say so is that if you have to take care of your child from the time the child is born, and the child knows your values and principles of how things happen in your house, then that child will actually go out and actually do what is expected from home. Now, the reason, and why I say this is that I've seen quite a lot of parents who have their children in the house, see children coming with very expensive things they can't even afford, but they don't even ask where these things are coming from. And the reason why they cannot actually ask why these things are coming from is because right from the word go, they didn't take control of their children. And that is why most of us are actually getting problems and ending up blaming the system. Now, I will give you a typical example where I know of a friend whom he just made a routine check and he had actually control over the child. And what did he find? He found a gun.
Wow.
The child had a gun. Now, what do you do as a parent? Because I heard somebody saying that you want to protect your children. You don't want to report them to the police because you know they are going to jail. But me as a parent, if I found my child with a gun, the next thing I'm going to do, I have a 13-year-old, I have a 20-year-old. But if I find my child with a gun, the first thing I'm going to do is to call the police. That child has to go to jail because it's not allowed. That's against the law. And that way, that child will come out. He will not actually be against me. The child will know that by the time he comes out from prison, he will know that he served his term, knows that he did the wrong thing, that did the right thing. And I believe that that child will progress on. And this is what happened with the story, actually a true story that I'm actually talking about. The child came back, went back to the university, made up with the parents, and continued, and is now having a good job. So I think for me, the advice to parents is that I'm not talking about parents with kids of about 10, 20, 30, or teenagers of about whichever age it is. But I'm talking about parents who are having children right now, young parents. Have your children with you. Make sure that the child you have, you know where the child is, you know what the child is doing. You give the child the phone before the time the school closes. Call the child, let the child tell you where he is. If it's in the park, for my case in particular, when my daughter was in primary school, I knew each and everywhere my daughter was. I made sure I was in the park with the child. My son is 13 years. We are always, if he's in the park, I even sometimes snoop over him. I go to school and follow him up because the system is so funny that people look at vulnerable children. And when they look at these vulnerable children, they take advantage of them. And it's easy to use some of these kids because they have nobody who is actually in control. All of us are actually working. Most of the parents are working, especially the Black people. I mean, I don't want to say Black, but the kind of background where we come from, we just came here to look for money. Some of us had the advantage of, having to stay on for longer than we had expected. Had children here, and it just keeps going and on. You can't go back. So basically, my advice is that if any young parent is in this forum, let them look after their children right from the go. You cannot start parenting when the child is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Set principles and, some of these things. And these things are open talk, especially about like the knife crime. I was just talking to my son yesterday. What happened, he had a detention in school. And the reason was he squirted some water on a friend. And I told him, I say, you don't know what this other kid have. The other kid might actually be very hungry and he has a lot of problems at home. The next thing you don't know, squirting water would be like a simple thing. You were like a play, but he would pick a knife and stab you and that's the end of you. So we talk to these kids time and again and remind them and let them know that, in a society where we live in. And I actually even still tell them, I said, you know what? We don't actually live here. This is not your home. We are new here. So you cannot compare yourself with these fellows who are already here. They don't have where to go. At least for us, we have somewhere we go. There's somewhere we call home. So these are open talks that we need to actually engage our kids with. We need to be very open to them and let the kids know where they belong. Some of them feel like, I remember my daughter at a very young age, she didn't want to identify as a Ugandan. I told her, no, that's not a point. You are not going to start thinking that you were born in the UK. You came when you were born in Uganda. You remain a Ugandan. Even if you have a UK passport, you remain a Ugandan. So I don't want to kind of dominate this talk, but basically that is just a few of what I possibly think is something
now,
I've always thought about.
James, before you go away, I just wanted to take you up on, while I take your point on the young parents, the parents who are just beginning to have children now, what would be your suggestion then for those who now have older children? We missed the opportunity, we're working so hard looking for the money. Is it gone? Is it too late to do anything? This is the question I can put to the social worker, but I would like to put it to you as a parent as well. Assuming I wasn't in my children's life due to circumstances beyond my own control, now suddenly I want to make amends. Is it too late? But at what point can someone enter?
No, I always, sorry about the noise at the background. I always believe that it is never late to achieve something. Some of us here are just trying to kind of jump into the career. So it's never late. But my advice would be that try to establish communication between the child whom, as a parent, you see that is actually going the wrong direction. And that communication is very important, especially if you know what you want to achieve. You have to be very honest to this kid. Let the kids relate to you. Let them know you are background and where you come from and what you actually aspire for. By doing this and talking openly to your child, it doesn't matter whether it's 15 or even 20 years. Talk to them directly and let them know that what they're doing, if you have identified your child as one who actually sometimes hold possibly knives in the bag, or one who sometimes associate with wrong people, or one who is already doing drugs, just tell them that this country has a lot of opportunity. And that is why a lot of us are here as parents, because we thought that there was more opportunity here than at home. And that's why we're here. So I think for me, communication and open talk is actually one of the most important things that can bridge gaps. By the way, I am a public health worker. I'm mostly specializing in HIV/AIDS. Just because I think at the beginning I didn't introduce myself.
Yes, thank you. That's good to know. Actually, we are building up the networks now. It would be good to know that we can count on you when it comes to topics public health as well. And
I've seen you quite a lot. I follow your program. I follow your program on NBS once in a while. I know you are in and out of the UK and Uganda, but I'm in East London. A lot of people know me. I'm one of the community leaders of Lung Association UK.
Right. Okay. Oh, that's
so good. I represent Lung Association. I'm the vice chairman of Lung Association UK.
Which one? Lango. Did you say Lung Association?
Lango. Association UK is a very vibrant.
James
Lango, Northern Uganda. It's a very vibrant.
You know, you are my muko. Apoyo. Apoyo Binu. Thank you very much.
Now that you have said I'm going to get you, we are going to link up at one point. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for joining the conversation. Just remind you,
you're welcome.
Come, let's talk with me, Kassim Kayira, live on.
And thank you for hosting this program, and I hope to participate another time.
Thank you very much. Just remind you, are live on 75W Radio, on Facebook, and on Umma Connect, on Zoom, and on YouTube, where we are flowing and flourishing live. I can see Boy Wonder coming back. Boy Wonder, I'll bring you in, and then Joy, I'll want you to come in a little bit and make an intervention on what a few issues that James has faced. But please, I would like to hear from parents who have had personal experiences, and I'm sure many of you probably are there in the Kamoni listening in, or even if it's a friend, if it's a friend's child who was affected. Maybe you can even decide to talk in the third person if that will, help, you deal with the situation. But we want to hear these particular stories, especially the coping mechanisms at the time when trouble came in. Ismail, actually, probably, I think I should have explored a little bit of this. You mentioned that within the family you had a gun incident. But I would like to sort of explore if there are any parents there or just listeners or viewers who are on here who have had those personal encounters with knife crime as a family or as a member of a family or a friend. I would like to hear, how the family coped, especially from the perspective of the community stigma or community support, if there was any. I would like to hear from you before we end this conversation today. I'll take Boy Wonder and then we'll watch just one video while preparing to move into our last phase of the conversation, where we'll try to see the solutions to the problems that we have had are being raised. Boy Wonder, you are back. Please, if you can unmute yourself.
Yes, hello.
Hello, Boy Wonder. You sound much clearer now. Yes, you're back. What is burning?
Yeah, I've got bad connection. But yeah, I like some of the points that the earlier guest was making. But for me, what I wanted to personally say, as you saw in my comments, yeah, the problem with African kids, that especially we've been raised in Uganda, with a tough hand. Yeah, in Uganda, for example, Abana Baba Kuba, Kusomelo, whatnot, but they do not end up to go on a rebellious or with a rebellious attitude on in life. But our two Jawano and everything, they're exposed to different cultures. And that's where the problem starts lying. What you see wrong, a white family might not see as wrong. or an Asian family might not see as wrong. Yeah. So when they go and interact with these families and they come back at home, yeah, and then the way the parents are going on, the kids start rebelling in a way like, why is my mom or my dad treating me this way? And Ahmed's dad is not treating him the same, or Johnny's dad. Yeah, and that creates that loophole in the system. And once they start exploring, we know kids got rights in this country. What parents are forgetting to understand is that kids will use things like this to their advantage. Like for me, in my experience, I used these things to my advantage until I realized it wasn't the best for me. Like I had to grow up.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I think you had raised that point, Boy Wonder, in the chat room as well. The point of multicultural nation, picking up the things what a Black African parent sees wrong, a white or Asian family might not see wrong, especially for children born in Africa and then are brought here. For them to be able now, when they pick up what is here, it becomes very difficult now to sort of balance. It actually causes a little bit of a confusion to the mind as well, especially when you have to, when you're trying to strike a balance between what is back home and what you have to contend with here. As Fakasuja says, some parents don't even know where to go sometimes or who to talk to. Our communities need to also avail resources and information to parents who are struggling. Joy, I'd like you to come back, especially on this now, whether we should have within our communities, like a sort of a hotline where people, in case of something, at least we should have a line that someone can run to very quickly. Do you think that is a viable solution to the potential of dealing with our own situation?
I believe that it's very good to deal with this crime, in our communities as, community leaders or communities in general, because relying on the police, Ismail may testify to this, young people are difficult to deal with when you're just using the police. So it's very good to use communities like maybe community leaders, but usually there is always a number, for like knife crime, numbers, but young people are not likely to, are likely not to communicate, via those lines. So it's very good for us to come together, like in communities, like Indians tend to have those kind of, services in their communities where they can report like to an elder and then they talk to each other. So somebody talked about, I think it was Boy something.
Yeah,
I kept calling that name. Boy Wonder.
Yeah,
about how young people look at their parents in our communities. But what we have also seen that your children may not be close to you, but you can talk to another relative in your family or a family friend. Try to broaden up, even as much as you work many hours. When you get the time, please get friends and introduce new people to your children, so that when communication is cut, then you can actually approach another person to talk to your child, and that way you get to know them. Because at the end of the day, you really need to know what your child is doing. But to answer your question, yes, we need some kind of community network, to help our children ourselves.
Right, brilliant. Becca Chinji is saying the help is there, but parents are not bothered or don't want to seek this help. They would rather keep their issues a secret and suffer in silence. I think that there is the ego aspect as well, Joy, in the community, that some people do not feel that by seeking help, it shows that they have failed. Their ego is harmed. What advice would you have for them?
There's nothing about ego here. Your child, it is you is going to be the victim, because your child is going to stab somebody or get stabbed. So you would rather feel low to get help. You understand? Go low and get help than feeling too proud not to get the help. It's like when you feel like, oh, if I tell somebody my son had a knife, they may all get away from us, and then we are going to be isolated. And I think, again, what Ismail talked about, the stigma around these kind of cases. But I'm telling you, you're going to put that aside and get the help before it is too late, because it only gets worse. And young people need to know that if they're giving up a knife, there is something they're getting, because they're putting their life online if they leave the knife, because that's what they're being told. You need a life to be safe.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Thanks very much, Joy. Anika, I've seen Anika, who is a new face. Quite often, I always want to hear from new visitors to the conversation, just to hear, because everybody, actually, the belief in this particular program is that everybody has got a story All you need is to tap into it and be able to hear it. And therefore, whenever you come in, whenever you tune in, whenever you decide to come here, be ready that I'll just tap on you at any particular point in time. Just be ready to maybe say something, because you will be amazed. Sometimes all you need is to start talking and you might be amazed as to how much you know that you haven't revealed. Anika Calhoun, I see Anika Calhoun. Can you unmute yourself, please? Anika? Anika Calhoun? Let me try Joy M. I see a Joy M as well. Isma, please, in the technical side of things, if you can prepare that video for us, we'll have that video and then we'll definitely build it up. Nilfa says, thanks, Joy. At the end of the day, it's your child and your life. There is a Joy M who is not Joy Chakwita. Joy M, can you please unmute yourself? Is Joy still shying? Sawia, if you don't mind. Sawia, you are in Woolwich, and this was the place where actually the stabbing took place, the stabbing that has become the basis of our conversation, of course, today. Anika says, I'm sorry, I can't speak. We will respect that, but thank you very much. I'm sure you're listening in. Sawia, are you able to join us in the conversation, please? Oh, it looks like I'm blocked always now. Everybody's shying. I see Jojo. I'm trying to wrap up. Isma, if you are ready, please let me know and we'll play the video. Asfa, you're coming in back while we are trying to get Jojo to unlock herself, unmute herself. Yes, Asfa, go ahead, please.
Brother Becker has made an important point here in the chat room. He said that the help is there, but the parents are not bothered and don't want to seek the help. They would rather keep their issues a secret and they suffer in silence. Now, what should be the solution to this kind of issue? Because when my neighbor's parent has a problem, then it affects me. My brother has a problem with a child, and it affects me. So what can communities do to help our children, even if the parents may not seem bothered, but at the end of the day, the children are affected. And when they're affected, they affect our children as well. It kind of trickles down. So what do you think should be the solution to these parents who would rather suffer in silence?
Well, if it was me taking the question on that, although I enjoy very much throwing away, I just bounce the question off myself and take it to the next person. But I think the ideal situation would be having these conversations, more of these conversations, because it is amazing. Quite often you can sit on a problem and you think you are the only one with the problem until you start with somebody else. The moment you start having that conversation, and then suddenly you start hearing from a person where you thought you were in a bad situation, you find someone who is in a worse situation and you realize you can actually be of help to this person when you thought you could have become an impediment. So definitely, I think the starting point would be, as a community, having these conversations, because the more we talk about this, the more demystifying we do to these particular aspects, because quite often the problem is the mystery surrounding these things is about the lack of people, the lack of the ability to talk about things. Of course, Anika Calhoun here is saying, Becca, I do not agree with Becca. I think parents just don't know. So I think there might be a bit of both. It might be that some parents don't know, but sometimes it's also about those who know, but they are stubborn about it and therefore try to sit on the problem and keep it as a family secret. The problem with stench is how long can you keep it wrapped? Because the stench will still come out, or the rot will come out. And that's the problem with handling a situation like this in that particular way. So I think the answer really goes to, as a community, having these conversations, people coming out and opening up. Quite often people feel shy or ashamed to talk about these situations. I was very happy hearing from Nuru in Manchester coming in to say, my son, faced this particular situation and I did not feel helped. What can I do? It's about people coming out and having these conversations. And quite often you'll find that women are more open to such things than men are. And sometimes then the men become the impediment to having the conversation because they will block the ability for that conversation to be had. Abu Yusuf says, I don't think they are not bothered. They are scared and genuinely want a solution. Some parents have been let down by the community where their children have become the talking subject instead of keeping the issues private with those they have reached out to. Now, that's the problem again with the community, that you go to someone to approach them for advice. The next thing now you become the social media aspect of the conversation, because someone takes the story from one to another and then the story goes on. Peter Sentenga, who is, I think, is new to this conversation as well. I noticed you're coming in, and welcome to the big global community conversation, as we call it. You say, Peter is saying, faith communities do help a lot. Parents need to deliberately create a faith community of friends or families for their children. Living in isolation does not help you as a parent, especially so far for the child. Stigmatization and parents being called bad parents, which is a case in the UK, especially in our Muslim community. That's a point that was raised before Peter Sentengas. That was from Nilfa, I think. And the conversation. Talha Muhammad Tigund, I come to you. Your point, please. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sheikh Kayira, thanks for the great program you're hosting.
Thank you for being part of it.
Sorry?
Thank you for being a part of it.
Welcome. Mine might come as a question as well as information. We find today there might be many factors that cause children to be affected negatively, and my points might be backed up by kind of two narrations. One says, "وأن يكون الولد غيظا إن من علائم الساعة وأشراط أن يكون الولد غيظا." You will find that children will have much more wrath, and so this can be that many things might be the cause of children in these later generations to have this wrath. Children have grown up in communities where they're seeing different things. I saw just a video recently. It's not yet even a week. The video I was so astonished by a kid. I think he must be 5 years, but doing something I wouldn't believe he could have the guts to, not to mention. But still, you see around him there are elder people, and this has been something that he is used to see. So it's not something that it is terrifying him. No, so it's something usual. So the kids are filled with wrath. I don't want to say only due to those who are around them and things that happen to happen around them, but you can see also when the Prophet said, "وَأَنْتَيْدَ الْأَمَةُ رَبَّتَهَا." So this generation has come out with different factors, subhanallah, where kids need extra much attention, not like the older days or the ancient days where kids used to they can't find someone dead on the road and they are comfortable to say or to pass by, says, "I've seen a dead body there," like these days. So things have come too much. They watch the videos where they've seen terrifying things and they're no longer terrifying, and they enjoy playing video games. The parents, you buying them the video games to shoot, and then you're surprised you see him doing something terrifying. Yet you bought him the games that he's using the swords, those games.
You buy Grand Theft Auto, you buy Grand Theft Auto, and then tomorrow they become thieves, and you're surprised.
You're surprised. Yet you bought him the games he's playing on the PlayStation, and those are the games that they enjoy. They won't enjoy calculating games. They won't enjoy other puzzles. They will only enjoy those games that there's wrath in them, where someone will punch someone, he goes 5 miles away. The violence games is what they enjoy, and then this goes into their hearts slowly by slowly, like the said in one narration. The fitan, the trials will go into hearts in a way of a screen, something that is oudan, like kind of box. And those are the screens we have at home. Whatever heart will take in this kind of fitan, I know there's a big definition for fitan, but when these kids watch or play these games, something slowly by slowly is going into their hearts. It's going into their hearts, and you'll find them. They get angry among themselves. They get the result to fight. He wants to kick the way he used to kick in the game. He wants to kick at the same as the movie he watched, the Kung Fu movie, you know, he jumps and he's trying to do the styles, subhanallah. And we do not know, the parents, that these actions are coming from the video games we're buying them and the movies we're giving them to watch.
So the kind of environment that people live in also now come to contribute to crimes like the knife crimes that we see. Sometimes it is part of the contribution.
Yes.
Barakallahu fikum, Sheikh Talha. Peter Sentenga, you are new to this conversation. So I'll invite you, I'll ask you to just come in and have, I hear from you because you've contributed into the chat, but being a new guest into the conversation, this is a conversation, this is our global community conversation where nothing is out of touch. We just keep it within check. We keep it in decency. But other than that, no topic is out of conversation. Peter, you're welcome to the conversation.
Thank you very much. I think I just come in, let somebody invited, but didn't know there was something like this existing.
Right, it does exist.
Somebody,
I'm sure you have the evidence now.
Yes. Yeah, it is a very decent conversation, and it's very important that we continue this conversation because really kids are being killed. You know, we just lost a 15-year-old in London.
Yes.
And that's quite sad.
Did you know the 15-year-old? Did you know the family?
Oh yeah, I know the parents. Yes, very well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So it's very sad, but that's not the only one. Mm-hmm. There are quite a lot of our young people being stabbed left and right. I think we also parenting has a lot to do with. I'm not blaming the parents, but parenting is very, very important, especially in this diaspora where we are. We're even at home. Violence is even at home there. So Africa has violence as well. We can't say there's no violence in the cities, but it's not at this magnitude. But parenting, I think a lot of either parents don't have time for their children. They don't create an environment where these children can have maybe a faith community, something supportive environment. And people just simply don't want to associate with their other own people. They think they're going to be like a BBC. They are going to put our names up there, or people just stay because of their papers. They don't have enough paper. I mean, for some reason, a lot of people decide to stay in isolation. And that's where it begins. So if you have a child, it doesn't matter how much you can give them. You can only give them those games to play on the TV until they reach puberty. When they reach puberty, they function. They function in larger groups, and so a child will form friends. I just tell you an example. A driver drives a bus, I think, was it last month, a month before? And around 2 a.m., 2 kids come on board in London. One is 8, the boy, the sister is about 4. And he says, "Where are you going?" "No, we were with our friends." "So where are you going?" "So where are your parents?" "No, we are going home now, I have the key." 2 a.m., simply because they know the parents have gone to work.
Wow.
So they are bored, they are coming 2 a.m. And the driver is very worried, doesn't know whether she should call social services or should do something about it. But drives, is very worried about these young children. But the children know they have been playing with their friends, but they know mother and dad are not at home. So some of the problems, I think we need to invest in our own children. It's rather you earn the little, but spend time with your children to know where they are and how they're living. And at any other time, you should have them. You should have somebody with them. Go to school, know what's happening, walk with them, bring them back, know their friends. And if possible, create an environment where you live with other Ugandans or other people that in a way that you can say, "Brother, go and pick my kid from school today." But some of us don't even turn up on parent evening. These kids are left on their own. And if they're left on their own, there are threats. They are also form groups so that they can protect themselves.
No, I've seen parents who are not even known in school. I mean, you
They
get
don't turn
one
up.
chance of just popping in to pick up a child and the teachers are concerned. They have to first call mom to find out whether
Yes.
they should let you father pick up the child.
Yes, and this you can't behave like that. You are in the middle of the city, or you are middle of somewhere, and you are spending so much time working, getting money, doing projects at home which don't have meaning, but you're losing your own child. We
Thank you
should
very much.
invest in these children, or create a family, or create a church, or a mosque, or somewhere you know that the children can go and they have. When they have birthday, you have created an environment of other children when they can, grow up together, supporting each other. So this is where we're having struggling because of, I think we've got a problem with parenting.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Peter. And what a good way to debut. You are coming into the conversation. Becca, I'll come to you. I just wanted to pick up Abu Yusuf, who is Abu Yusuf. You are a co-host, so you can actually unmute yourself. Abu Yusuf, you just mentioned there another 18-year-old Ugandan was stabbed in North London, but Alhamdulillah, he survived. But it's really bad. A little bit of detail, I think, will help into this particular conversation that we're having today. Abu Yusuf, please go on. How much do we know about this particular incident?
Well, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Kayira.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hadn't even noticed your voice there.
Yes, it is, it's a really sad situation. It's a family that I know, but, he was, invited to the park by his fellow friends.
Yes.
And, before he knows it, I think the rival gang spotted him and, beaten and stabbed. So you can imagine that sort of scenario, where a child has just come in to enjoy themselves in the park. But again, it comes down to the parents. When you look at the lifestyle some of the parents leave their children to enjoy, and exactly the kind of country or environment you're living in, there's certain things that, yes, the child might feel that those privileges are being taken away, but as a parent, you know your child better, and what sort of things could land them into trouble. When you dig deeper with majority of these children, you'll find that it's lack of knowing what's going on in their life that has caused the actual issue. Or some of the parents are just too closed up to an extent that, if a child says, I'm actually facing a problem, they're like, oh, I also face the same issues in school, deal with it. But what you're forgetting is what the children are actually facing nowadays. The way, these issues are different. When a child tells you that they're being bullied, you have to actually take it serious. If it means to take them out of that school, take them out. Because the moment they feel insecure and they feel you're not helping, that's when they have to find their own ways or their own means to protect them. And they can't go to the police because then they're going to be called snitches. They're going to be called rat and all these, funny names that, this is the reason why they don't report the crimes. So they have you as a parent who is refused to acknowledge what they're going through. The next thing is, I need to find someone to protect me. If I can't find that someone, then I need a knife. And that's how the whole, it just starts like, it really doesn't start from anything, to be honest. It starts from small things that just become so big. And by the time it's big, the parent can't really control it anymore.
Abu Yusuf, you've grown up in this country. Did you have a moment where you found yourself having to fail in a similar situation, especially in London? You grew up in London, and London being what it is, was there a moment where, for example, you felt like you needed to have a knife to protect yourself?
You get to those moments, but again, it comes down to your grounding. Those moments actually came, especially when I was in college. You come in from college and you have to go through in the middle of Croydon. You have to go to West Croydon, and you absolutely know that you're going to be buzzing. So you tend to find that you can't even go through to certain places. You can't go through here. But because you've had that background, you have this community where everyone is telling you, don't do this, don't do that, all these different, different things we went through, the community was really there. Personally, I'll say my mom put us in a community whereby everyone, wherever you would go, someone knew you. I would be there and they would ring my mom, oh, Faisal, oh, Faisal. And I'm like, you know what? I really don't want to even be out of the house anymore because what can you do? When you go to the cinemas or something, there's a Ugandan that's already working there that's going to call your mom. Oh, we've seen him. You're at the mosque, someone knows you there or here or there. So these things that someone mentioned, when you create a community and your children are known in that community, yes, it might not stop them from everything, but I will tell you, it did stop me quite a lot. There's certain things which are no, I can't go in there. Like I know I wouldn't go to Mitchell, I wouldn't go to all those Ugandan places, and then you're tied up and you're thinking, okay, where am I going to go? I might as well just stay at home, and that just dies out from there. But it's really important to have the community.
Thank you very much, Abu Yusuf, for sharing that. And Talha Muhammad Tigun, I think, goes into that. It's sharing the community. But he says, I was teaching a child on Zoom and she shouted at the mom. I wondered if the lessons I'm giving the child should be, or I should request the mother to allow me to teach the child something else and not the lessons I was requested to teach. So all efforts are going in there. Becca Chinji, please unmute yourself. Your point, please.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sheikh Kayira, well, me, I'm a man from Butambala, but I'm sure you know more English than me. But there's a saying that says,
I know more English than you who has grown up in UK. Mine is all wages from Webtakuni.
There's a saying that says, and I don't mind.
Yes.
It's a devil's workshop,
Devil's workshop, yes.
Yes. So many young people are idle, So many young people they have nothing to do, and we have young people have a trend of following fashion. Right now, the fashion is stabbing. The fashion is stabbing someone. So for any parent that's on here, if I was to give you a picture in the streets, it's a war zone. I remember when I was young, there's a time I had to take a hammer into school, One day I took a hammer into school, but these are things that come up and then you're like, what am I doing? So it depends on things pop into your head, something happens in school, but because it's the norm, it's what's happening, you end up following, sometimes some youngsters walk with these weapons for protection, but then obviously if you walk with this weapon and something happens, you're going to have to use it if you're faced with that situation, But then so many young people get caught up in situations or even in wrong places at the wrong time. And then they end up using something they wouldn't have used. So there are so many challenges that are facing these youngsters because the streets are a war zone. If I was to put it in a picture, the streets are a war zone, If you don't have a weapon, someone else is going to have that weapon. But it's a thing whereby so many young people are idle. They have nothing to do. You can imagine, even you as a grown-up, you go to work, you come back home. You go to work, you come back home. You go to work, you come back home. It's like you get bored. So it's the same thing with young people. You go to school, you come back home. Your mom says, come back home by 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. You go to school, you come back home. Then she's not even providing nothing for you to do at home. Video games, most of them get bored. Or even you come back home, there's no one at home. You're the only one at home. So you're idle, you're doing nothing. One friend is gonna make that phone call. Yo, what are you doing? Nothing, I'm just chilling at home. No, yeah, come, let's go. You leave the house, you go. You end up, that's when you think your child is at home, but then they've gone to fight a war, So what advice parents is find something for your children to do. Find something for them to do, because if they're idle, they're going to end up in situations like this. So
well,
that's
the program is nearly coming to an end, Becca, and it's actually been a very, very fruitful conversation. I wish I could have had more, especially personal stories and testimonies, and especially from the young people like you, Becca. I think it was very, very good hearing that hammer story. Just to tell you that I used to be a supply teacher when I just around 2005 to 2007 there-ish. And I was in a very difficult part of London, in South London. I was in Kidbrooke. I was in, there was a school called Thomas Tallis. It's actually since gone down. I think they've tried to build up an academy there. There was another school again in Erith, I think, another very difficult school. And as a supply teacher, actually, it's like really, really, you are fodder for for the hungry, disrespectful children when they come into class. You just find yourself into the lion's den, and then they'll almost want to devour you alive. The fact that you can survive those situations, but in that time, I managed to find that actually by getting through conversations with many of the children, it was amazing how much they were sort of carrying as burdens. They didn't have people to speak to. Whenever I would come in and bring these interesting stories about the BBC and so on, we would just sit in lessons, and the next thing is everyone is just, falling in love with the teacher, and like that is giving stories about the world, and you see suddenly the kind of interest. And then one day, one kid actually came with a pistol in class, and I cannot forget that particular incident when we had to literally plead with this child to sort of, hand over the gun, and it was taken over into the office and into the authorities. Another time, as a qualified teacher, there was a newly qualified teacher who cannot be allowed to be in class by herself. I was taken in as a supply teacher, but to go and supervise this teacher. And while I was at the back of the classroom, that was in Pittsburgh, this big boy comes in and goes, and this woman was from Zimbabwe, and she was a very good teacher. Actually, she was from South Africa. Comes in wearing her skirt, and then the boy just goes to the front of the classroom, lifts the teacher's skirt up, and all, like all her underwear is exposed. The whole class is laughing, and that was something, to have to deal with that kind of behavior. And then the moment we started digging back, we just went back, and it was all an entire problem coming from a broken home, without a father, with the mother who is working so hard to make sure she can buy the video games and avail them, and do all the beauty, but without actually parenting. I think as a community, we need to sort of sit back now and go make the time, because growing up is surprising. As you grow up, growing up is pretty fast. As you miss out on these moments, you can never catch up. So as a parent, let us make the time. As a community, let's get people like Joy. Let us get the social workers. Let's put them to use. Let's make sure we tap into their talent and the kind of services that they can bring in. But I think as a community, the bigger effort now should go into creating a community charity organizations that can service our communities with what we exactly need. Because you will find that in communities, there are facilities, there are sports areas, blah, blah, but you find that those areas might not necessarily address the issues pertinent to our own communities. And therefore, we might need to create these kinds of environments for our children, for our community, so that they are custom made to address the very issues that face our communities. And I think until and unless we embark on that, we're going to be struggling as a community. Isma, please, if you can play that video, and then off the back of it, we'll just wrap up the program. It's already past 10 o'clock, but we started a little bit late. I've seen so many people. I don't know whether this was Peter Senhenga's work or Ismail Mugisha's work. I'm seeing a lot of new people, Jeanette Nkurunziza. I've seen quite a number of people who have appeared for this conversation. If you can just leave the introduction there, Isma, just go to where the clip actually starts, please. If you can just forward while I introduce. Yes, so I think you've gone to find the clip. Just need to get rid of the intro, which is about probably 20 seconds, 30 seconds in. Or maybe we could actually even have it. It might help. One boy wonder says, I remember my teachers back in Uganda, where we have people willing to help these young people. Please reach out to us. We can work together. And that's Becca there informing the community. If you're ready, Isma, we can just roll, please.
Knife in London is on the rise. 17 teenagers have been murdered this year alone. The Metropolitan Police says we are now on track for the highest number of deaths in over a decade. Simeon Brown reports.
These are faces of the young lives lost to knife violence on our streets in a fatal month for teenagers. Jalen Woods Bell, stabbed outside a West London school, was 15 years old. Benjamin Orton was 17. He was stabbed outside a cinema in Derbyshire. Donardo Samuels Brooks was chased on a South London high street and killed. He too was just 17. D. John Reed in Birmingham was even younger at just 14. Amongst the 5 charged for his death, 2 are in their 30s. In London, the number of teenagers killed in 2021 has already surpassed the 15 killed in 2020. Violence is escalating after years of interventions and new initiatives from politicians.
Nobody in their right mind would suggest that just expanding ping pong clubs is going to be a complete solution. But what I'm saying is that it's got to be part of the solution.
Our police need to be empowered, and as we're recruiting 20,000 more police officers, we need them to be out making sure that those that want to do harm are prevented from doing harm.
I'm quite clear. Stop and search is a useful tool when used properly and proportionally. All right? Good stuff.
In recent years, as the focus has returned to beefing up policing measures with units like this one, the question is what is actually happening with fatal knife violence, especially in the capital. Across England and Wales, the number of murders fell by 12% last year. Even in London, there has been a downward trend in homicides over the past 20 years. Last year in 2020, the number of murders were 42% lower than 2003. In this 17-year period, almost 1 in 5 murders were identified as domestic violence. Half were caused by knives or sharp objects, and the majority of victims were white. Over the past year, serious crime is down 22%. But if that sounds positive, there is a downside. The Met say there has been an increase in the number of teenagers murdered. So far in 2021, 17 have lost their lives, 15 were stabbed, and 12 were black. More teenagers have died in 6 months of 2021 than in the whole of 2020. This disproportionality has not just fallen along the lines of ethnicity, but geography too. These violent suppression teams have been deployed in key areas, but their tactics have faced scrutiny. More significantly, as the authorities grapple with how to keep the public safe, how much can policing alone solve the problem of violence?
Welcome to IntelliStyle. Now you can build sophisticated applications that power your whole business.
Simeon Brown reporting. For many young people in the UK, carrying a knife is, they say, a necessity to defend themselves, not because they are violent, but because they fear being the victims of violence. Now, an acclaimed new book is trying to shed light on the lives of some young people who live in a world surrounded by violence, one in which they feel powerless. As the author Kieran Thapar puts it, lives that are cut short by knife crime. One of the people Kieran worked with is Jamar Jonas, a young man whose own life was irreversibly shaped by violence. 2 young men.
It wouldn't be anywhere near the problem it is today, last year, the year before that, if people cared enough.
From very different worlds.
A lot of young people with a lot of brain power that could be doing some serious stuff to change the world and that, but they don't see it like that because they're not valued.
But a shared sense of outrage about wasted young lives and a determination to find solutions.
I remember one time I was in Parliament, yeah. I looked at the people I was sitting in Parliament with and I said, I can't lie to you. What are you lot are doing right now? I don't know what are you lot are trying to achieve, because right now London is a war zone. As in, it's kind of funny, like, to think about it, like, your capital city is genuinely a war zone. As in, it's like World War III happening in a capital city. That is mad. That's just, how does that make any sense?
It is experienced by young people like a war, but it's a war that's invisible, that happens on the same stretch of land that most adults are just navigating every single day, and it's invisible in so many different ways. But a lot of young people do experience it like a war.
Kieran Thapar began mentoring Jamar and a number of other young boys at a youth club in South London while he was a student, not expecting perhaps just how much these young boys were having to navigate. We last met Jamar in 2018, just months after his older brother Michael had been stabbed to death.
I would have been coming with him along with Dad to go and get his first car. But it's like, now we can't even do that anymore because he's been taken away in such a manner.
We've seen in the last few months, you know, children as young as 14, 15, both being killed and being charged with murder. What do you feel when you hear those things?
It's gonna sound crazy, but I feel like I'm kind of numb to it now, because it's like, even my areas, like, I walk through my area, like, as in the way I leave my house now, is like, I leave my yard, I might not make it home today, innit? I know I'm not involved in anything, but I might not make it home today. I nearly got shot from mistaken identity, like, I've seen knives get pulled out on people. I've had knives pulled out on me. Like, it's just normal, innit?
It's an indictment against a reality that has been allowed to happen. And not only has the reality of youth violence been allowed to happen, we've come out of a pandemic, and for the last 10 years, all the lifelines that could maybe, just maybe, help public health now, in many different ways, are gone.
In the decade from 2010, the YMCA says almost 5,000 youth workers have been cut, more than 700 youth clubs closed.
If we as a society teach a young person that the value of their life is so low, through schooling, through the decimation of youth services, through maybe the parenting that they've had, the way that you look at them on the street, these things set in, and at some point they stop valuing their life, and at that point, you know, who cares if I carry a knife to try and defend myself? I might get killed today, so I'm going to do that. You know, the stakes become completely different, and they become invisible when adults aren't paying attention, which we haven't been.
You talk about, you know, cuts to youth services, and you'll know there'll be many people out there who will say that's just an excuse. What about personal responsibility? What would you tell them?
I think it's very clear-cut, this argument, when you're talking about people that are so young. It's not their fault. It's not. When you're under 18, I mean, I'd say under 25, but under 18 especially, like a lot of young people who end up getting involved in violence are, and the ages of people being stabbed to death are, you know, 13, 14, 15. These are not outliers now, these are normal, these ages.
Having been mentored by Kieran, Jamar, just 19, now mentors young boys himself. Both men are in no doubt that keeping at-risk young people in school is vital to keeping them safe and providing them with opportunities and a sense of value.
From in the institutes that should have been helping them grow, they've been dashed out of it. So it's like, what can they do? And not every single one of them have those parents that can actually keep them grounded. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, if the parents ain't physically capable of doing it, and then you've got the schools that ain't trying to assist further neither, then it's like, and then you've also got the communities that are either too scared or don't care enough. It's like, what do you expect these guys to do?
I think when you exclude a child from school, it sends a message that overrides every other message that that young person could receive, which is that we don't want you and you don't belong.
The Met Police have put out this very direct appeal saying there have been so many deaths of young people, you know, they're worried about the summer. Will that be helpful?
Like, a lot of guys die in summer. That's just the truth, innit? Like, a lot of guys die in summer. And it's like, even for some of the friends around me, sometimes I get a little bit like, this year might not finish with my group of friends, do you get it? Unless both the Met and community step up to do what they need to do, then it's not going to change.
What would you say to us, to everybody, about why we should be hopeful about this?
Since I've been a youth worker, there are countless tragedies and problems and difficulties, but also at least as many successes, at least as many moments of laughter, of joy, of seeing people succeed. These young men can change things for the better, and they are the solution.
Jamar, are you hopeful?
I have hope, but my hope is based off the fact that I know I am one of the guys that is actually trying to do something about it. That's where most of my hope stems from. And the fact that I know there's other guys around me that are like me in the sense where they want to help solve this problem as well. That's where my hope stems from.
Kieran and Jamal say they've both learnt so much from each other over the years, but that there are lessons for the rest of us too. That this problem of youth violence belongs to us all. And later in the programme, we'll be speaking to the Shadow Policing Minister, Sarah Jones, Conservative MP.
And we just conclude the programme. Beautiful, I'm sure whoever has been watching, you definitely can't be the same after watching that conversation, an honest conversation about what exactly is going on. But you see that all the issues that we raised here are issues now that have come back, creating environments or spaces where young people can find something to do, something to keep them busy. Involvement of parents and being part of the story of their lives, and therefore, being able to deal with situations that they have to cope with day in, day out. These are all aspects that are actually must and ought to be a part of the conversation that we were having. Growing up in our communities, we grew up around people that we found, much more responsible. You had reference points. A neighbor or a person who knew your parents could easily find you on the way. If you are misbehaving, they could comfortably get a stick, deal with you, and then even come home and report you. And then your parents would actually thank them in the first place, but also smack you again to sort of re-emphasize the point. That is the kind of the community that we were brought up. Of course, we are living in totally different situations, and therefore that means we also have to deal with these situations in a different and totally different way. Joy, I just want us to wrap up with you. Hearing what you've had tonight in this kind of conversation, what's your takeaway as a social worker dealing exactly with this particular situation that we are talking about?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, for your contributions. I'm just reflecting as we talk right now, because when we start hearing these things happening in our communities, then it's really hitting right home. And most of you have observed, you're not going to do this thing alone. When you discover your child has started carrying knives, it may not be the first time. It may be, that he's already there. You're not going to do this thing alone, believe me. You will need help, because something has happened, whether it is because of communication or because of isolation. You will need help. And please do not feel like you're not going to get a help. If you knock one door and you don't get the answer, please try somebody else. But get help from social services. Let's use our communities. Especially now with the COVID, we've learned to relate more. I think it's important for us to look out, even if you don't have like religious, communities, you can look out for fellow Ugandans. Even if they're not fellow Ugandans, look for somebody in the community, because our children fit in the communities where they are. They may not fit in the Ugandan community, but they may fit in wherever you are. Try to make friendships for them. Be interested in their friends, and then become friends of their parents, and let them know you're building a ring around them. So for me, that's my recommendation. It's not, you're not being a traitor when you report your child to the police. When you discover a knife, we do random checks. Be inquisitive and curious. Talk to them, check things, go into their rooms when they don't know. You're not stalking on them. It's because we are living it, like someone has said. It's like war zone. That's how it feels like. And if it is in war zone, we have to put our alarms up as well. So don't just say, oh, I trust my child. Teenagers are living in a very difficult environment. And it's good for you to go and check and find out. And maybe if the child knows my mom checks my room sometimes, they may fear to bring a knife home. And maybe it may prolong, because they are thinking, what are the consequences of this? And be honest and say, if I find this, I'm going to report you, because it's dangerous for you. And sometimes good to have those honest conversations. But if we keep talking like some of you have observed, we have so many people. We had James. We have so many people. Ismail, boy, all of you guys have a lot of experience in these things. And maybe after some time, we can take it down to our communities. And when our young people listen to us, they know there is help. They will realize there is something. There is no other way.
Beautiful. But Joy, listening to this conversation from start to nearly finish, it seems to almost point to just boys from the sound of it. It's the boys who carry knives. Do we have instances of girls being involved in the knife crime?
Actually, I'm so sorry for also saying it's only boys. I didn't actually say boys, but I should have mentioned it. Girls are groomed. In fact, it's girls who carry the knives for the boys, because when they when the police stop, they stop boys. So they are likely not to search the girls. So now the gang members know that they use 12-year-olds. We have 13-year-old girls, and these are blonde girls, by the way. Let's not say black girls or black young people only. At the moment, as much as the research, the information we have now shows that actually most young people who are killed are black. We are actually having so many white people, white young kids who are involved in gangs, and they are likely to carry the drugs, to carry the knives and the guns, because they are not going to be stopped. And that's why they're telling the police as well, start checking out these things as well. So yes, girls are there. And for moms, please, when you see your daughter coming with new trainers, don't just say it is a present because it's a birthday. They're trying to blind you. Somebody's telling that girl to go and carry a knife for them. Then they meet them somewhere because they know the police is watching them. So they're being used as well. So look out for them as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very, very much, Joy, and for everyone who has participated in this conversation. For the newbies into the program, people like Peter Senhenga and Jeanette Nkurunziza, this conversation takes place every Tuesday from 8 to 10 p.m. It's a global community conversation where we talk about different topics. And next week, God willing, we are looking at parenting fathers, because this is part of the aspect. A lot of complaint has come from mothers who say the fathers are normally away, they are never around, and therefore we end up struggling alone. Men are saying, not really. Many of us do, but sometimes it goes unnoticed. Next week, I would like to get some videos recorded. If you're a father out there and you do some activities with your children, with your daughter, with your sons, please record that. Even if it's cooking, it's a cooking session, it's a whatever, show your parenting skills. Just make sure the video is just 1 minute, because we'll be playing about 5, 6, 7, 10 videos if they are there. If they are 1 minute, that's 10 minutes that we can spread across the program so that we can have an interesting conversation. And we will be hearing from you, the parenting fathers, probably even with the mothers coming to confess and give testimony about the fathers who are there for their children who do the parenting. It is Parenting Fathers next Tuesday, inshallah. Please make sure, Sheikh Zaid, make sure you record a video of you parenting in your home. I would like to have a video of that. Beka Chinja, I challenge you. Abu Yusuf, I challenge you to that. Isma, in the technical side of things, I challenge you, just record a video of yourself parenting your child. I think if you are part of your child's life, why not pride yourself in it? I think next week, inshallah, we'll be talking about parenting fathers, and the wives and the women will be here to give their testimony, especially from those fathers who run away from that responsibility. We're trying to prove that we do our very best. Thank you very much for keeping it. Let's talk with me, Kassim Kayira, live here on Facebook, on W75W Radio, as well as Ummah Connect, where we have been streaming live on YouTube and on Zoom. Remember, if you want to watch some of the episodes that have passed on this particular program, just look for Ummah Connect on YouTube, and you'll be able to find Come Let's Talk with Kassim Kayira. Segments are always there. You can watch back to the programs. This is your global community conversation with me, Kassim Kayira. Until next week, Tuesday, inshallah. Thank you very much for being part of the conversation. And I can only wish you a very good night. In Kinyarwanda, they say, Murara Harijana. Thank you very much for being a part of the conversation. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.